In this episode of OG55, we are joined by Brian and Sam, the DCL duo. We're talking all about Disney Cruise Lines. We're even going to dip into a little bit of Walt Disney World. We have a lot to discuss today. Up next on OG55. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG55. This is a very special edition of the show. We have the DCL duo with us today. We got Brian and Sam. Brian, I will start with you. How are you doing today, sir?
I am doing great. It is it's a nice day here in Seattle as I'm looking at my window. So doing great.
Awesome. It's great having you on. If you could kind of let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media and also what you guys do over there at the DCL duo.
Sure. We have a twice weekly podcast. We do once a week a live show that we also put out the audio for. So we're on YouTube. And then every week we put out a main episode. So you can find us on all the major podcasting platforms and YouTube at DCL Duo. And on all the socials at DCL Duo, just all run together except for Instagram, where we're DCL_Duo. And every show I go on, I say, if you're out there and your DCL duo mushed together, please reach out to us. We would be interested in talking to you about getting your history.
There you go. Sam, it is great having you on as well. First time. How you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it. We, as Brian mentioned, where you can find us, but we cover all things Disney Cruise Line. We also like to cover Adventures by Disney, and we like to do compare and contrast between Disney Cruise Line and other cruise lines and other kind of similar travel experiences, like some all-inclusives, things like that. But obviously our main passion is the cruise line, so that's what we mostly cover.
Perfect. And I'll be linking all their socials down below in the description, so make sure you follow and subscribe to DCL Duo. Last but not least, I got George the Italiano here with his baby Grogu shirt on. How you doing, George?
I'm doing good. It's always a great time being on, and we love having new guests. And I was very interested in seeing their perspective of the Disney Cruise Line, because I'm a huge avid cruiser. I love Disney Cruise Line, so I love to connect with people in the community to kind of see, like, to compare and contrast, to see like their adventures of where they go on the high seas. But anyways, if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. There he is.
I love it, George.
It's perfect. Absolutely perfect.
I have to stretch every time that I have to do my spiel. I do my Pilates. I do my yoga. I gotta like get prepped and prepared.
Get into it. Right?
Do you do like vocal practices, like, voice and
it's funny that you say that.
Things?
Yeah, actually, I'm gonna really date myself. I started doing that ever since I've seen the first High School Musical, when Sharpay and Ryan do that.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I'm thinking you probably do that as you're doing your yoga stretches. I feel like that would be perfect and kind of important. Or maybe you do like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, right? Like, or something like that over and over again.
That was good, Sam. That was really good. I couldn't have done that. That was fantastic. All right, let's dive right in. So this is actually D23 news, which this kind of blew me away. I knew they were going to talk a lot about the cruises at the expo, but I was not expecting this much of an aggressive push.
Right?
Way more aggressive than I was expecting. This is from the Walt Disney Company website. Disney Cruise Line announces fleet expansion to continue period of unprecedented growth. Josh D'Amaro, chairman of Disney Experiences, unveiled at D23 on Saturday that 4 new ships will be joining the Disney Cruise Line's award-winning fleet. With 5 ships in the current fleet and the 4 others already in development, the additional 4 ships announced on Saturday will be delivered between 2027 and 2031. Will bring the total size of the fleet to 13. So, Sam, I'll start with you. I mean, What's your thoughts on this? This is like they're basically doubling
Yes.
the fleet.
I will say we were a little bit shocked. We predicted that they were going to announce 2 new ships. And I think we did that in part based on the artwork that was the D23 artwork that actually had like 2 Disney Cruise Line looking ships in the artwork. And so that was in part the basis of our prediction, but also because, the Magic and Wonder getting up there in age, 26 years for the Magic and 20, forget how many for the Wonder, but she's only a few years younger than the Magic. So we thought, okay, we'll see maybe 2 replacements. I was kind of shocked by this. I think it's great news for Disney Cruise Line fans. But I'm a little bit concerned about the growth that quickly and whether or not they're going to be able to keep up with the level of service that they currently have, because this means hiring like gangbusters, right? Like they're already having to hire like gangbusters over the next couple of years in order to staff the Treasure that's coming out this December, the Destiny for next November, the Adventure sometime next year. We still don't know exactly when. And then, and then they're going to have this OLC ship out of Japan. So it's just a little crazy. I'm just not sure how they're going to ramp up their staffing sufficiently and train people sufficiently to really expand the fleet that quickly. It's not easy in the cruise line industry because the cruise line industry is huge. So there's demand there. It's just, that's the thing I'm worried about.
No, and that's a fair concern, Sam. We actually talked a lot on the show about like Universal. They're going through a huge growth period right now.
Yeah.
It's really exciting with Epic Universe and everything going on. But they're talking about, Texas and Nevada, and even like in the UK and stuff. And George and I were talking about how it's exciting, but at the same time, it's a real big risk because, like you were saying with the cruise lines, you grow really fast like that. There's a chance that the quality kind of loses along the way sometimes when you kind of overexpand really too quickly. So that's with it. That I didn't even really think about that, but that's a very, very fair point. What say you, Brian? What are your thoughts on this? 4 new ships, basically doubling the fleet. Do you share some of the concerns with Sam that this could be worrisome a little bit with the quality coming into this?
I do share some of those concerns. I mean, especially because Disney trades on service. Like that's how they justify the price in a lot of these cases, is that they provide a higher level of service than some of the other cruise lines. I mean, overall excitement. We've got a clip out there there were 4 of us watching the announcement. Like we were just basically trolling Twitter and watching whatever live stream was still working coming out of D23. And we did an around the horn kind of the 4 of us saying, how many we think we're going to announce new ships. We think they got one more thing coming. How many is it going to be? And, it was like 2, 2, 3. And when it came to me, I said, what the heck? Let's ask Josh for 4. So, and then he announced 4, and I think we all lost our minds. So I'm excited about what's to come. It's crazy to think that we essentially are going to have a maiden voyage of a cruise ship every year between now and 2031 with probably 1 year gap. They got a lot of work to do, though. We're sort of speculating that they're going to be building a new class of ship for at least a couple of these of ships that they're bringing out. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work to do. So Disney Cruise Line, has never announced 4 ships at once. The most they've ever announced is 3. The length of time between new classes of ship has been pretty long and spread out for them. I'll say the one really net benefit that I hope comes out of this, that's a lot of new rooms to be filling for the cruise line. It is a lot of rooms. I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on them in terms of pricing, especially with like Royal and some of these other cruise lines coming out with even more ships that they're going to base out of Port Canaveral. So as a consumer, I think we're going to see the competition heat up a little bit. I checked earlier this week on the Treasure Maiden Voyage, and you can still book a room on the Treasure Maiden Voyage, which is crazy to me 4 months before she set sail. So wow. We'll see how they're doing with these ships, but they're, doubling the fleet means taking the fleet and doubling the number of rooms they have to fill. And that's a lot. That is a lot of rooms to fill at the price point they're asking for these days.
Yeah. Part of the issue with the Treasure, though, is paid in full just happened. And so you have those last minute cancellations, people who canceled right at the paid in full timeline. So they're losing their deposits, but they are not having to pay the rest of the cruise fare. So, because those are non-refundable cruises maiden voyages basically are non-refundable. So so I think that has something to do with it. I think it was sold out or close to sold out before, and now there's like every room category available, as Brian mentioned.
Yeah.
But I'm
been...
hoping for a West Coast based ship, other than the Wonder, who has been, she was West Coast based sort of before, but now she heads over across the Pacific to New Zealand and Australia for a big chunk of the year, and obviously then does the Alaska season. So we only have the Wonder, I think, this year in San Diego for like a month or something, maybe a month and a half. It's a really much shorter season in, sort of Central California, Southern California. And so we're in the Seattle area, as we said, but I really am hoping for like another, Wonder can keep doing what she's doing, but I want another ship at least over on the West Coast so that we can have some more sailings out of San Diego.
I do want to touch upon that a little bit, but I just have to ask, you correct me if I'm wrong. Is the Treasure's maiden voyage during Christmas
Correct.
week?
It is
okay.
Christmas week.
Do you feel like
which
is tough?
I was just gonna say, do you think that plays in a contributing factor as to why there would still be rooms available? And do you think that was like a risk for Disney to kind of utilize that time for a maiden voyage?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, yes, I think it was. Although if you're going to pick a date in December, I mean, if you're trying to get families on board this ship, it's kind of tough to pick anything other than Christmas week, right? Because just school schedules, holidays. There's some speculation they picked that week because they actually wanted to depress demand on the ship, which they did in some ways, right? Obviously, there's been rooms available kind of ever since she went on sale. They kind of went away for a while and they come back, so there's been rooms available the whole time. The way that the thing that really changed on this voyage is, to rewind to the Wish sold out by the time it hit gold. I think there was like a handful of golds who got rooms on the Wish. So you're really talking about gold and platinum cruisers who were on that sailing, and they did that weird thing that they tiered it out at platinum. So, it was super platinum, medium,
Brian's
super
talking
platinum.
about Castaway Club loyalty
status,
basically members status.
But,
so
but she
sold
out.
DCL people.
She sold out at gold. This cruise, we're actually adminning the largest of the Facebook groups around the Treasure sailing, and this cruise has a ton of first-time sailors on it.
Yes.
A ton of silver, a ton of gold. It's a mix on board, which in some ways if they pick the week in part to kind of open this experience up to more people, then kudos to them. They've accomplished what they wanted. It's interesting is to fast forward now to the Destiny, who will do her maiden voyage. Her maiden voyage was just announced for November 20th. A really weird time to start. I mean,
next year.
2025. A really weird time to start because it's like the Thursday before the week of Thanksgiving. So, she's going to have her maiden voyage and let people off like the Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and we're looking at that going, are we going to pull our son out of school? Like, that's a really tough time, I think, to get people on a ship. So we'll see what happens. They have a strategy here, I'm assuming.
Yes, hopefully, right? Hopefully. Now, Brian, I want to ask you, Brian, that was the Destiny that you're referring to right now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the Destiny, I want to kind of pick your guys' brain on this, because there's a lot of Marvel on that ship, a lot. With the Black Panther statue in the the atrium, and then they have the spider bots on the back of the ship, with Spider-Man and stuff. Now, I like Marvel. I think it's a great franchise. I watch the movies. I'm into it. I have no problem with it kind of being in the Disney family, so to speak. Mm-hmm. But a lot of fans do have an issue with it. They're not really feeling that. Where do you stand with that in terms of like this ship being kind of so Marvel driven? Is it something that you like, or is it kind of a little bit too much of a stray from the typical Disney stuff?
So what's interesting, I saw somebody comment the other day, they had actually broken down all the new spaces.
I was going to pull up that post, Brian.
How many were Marvel versus how many were something not Marvel? And it feels Marvel heavy, I think, in part because they've done some really new stuff on the ship, the atrium or the Grand Hall statue, I guess they call it on the Wish class ships, the aft or stern character hanging off the back, both Marvel, the Doctor Strange bar, but then once you get past that, you're into, you've got the Cruella de Vil lounge. You've got a Pirates themed pub coming, right? So there's some stuff. It's a mix. I think it's hard for them not to do heroes and villains and not lean into Marvel. At the same time, they're pulling some of the, the hits, the greatest hits out of the catalog too, with Hercules and stuff like that. Overall, I'm excited for it. I'm here for it. Like our show, we try to keep things as positive as we can. And like, for me, I'm less about, let me put it this way. Every new ship, just like every new experience, is like the most divisive thing that Disney has ever done in the community.
Right.
So like
every new land and ride in the parks is the same.
The Wish, everyone's like, I hate it. And then people started sailing on it. She's doing just fine. Like, she's filling up and people are loving it and coming off of it saying, I love it. Like, so I have every confidence that the Destiny is going to be a really cool ship. What's happening now is you're seeing Disney diversify the fleet, which just like Royal or some of these other cruise lines, people get their favorite ships. They like the theming of one, the restaurants on another. Like, this is the whole point. Like, you can try them all, or you can try the class of ship you really like and just stay there. So that diversification, I think, is important. I think it's a diversification of experience, theming, all of that stuff. So I'm here for it. Like, we're going to try and go on every ship we can, and I'm here for it. I think it's going to be great. So
I want to say not every ship is for everyone, but there is a ship for everyone. So so if you like princess theming, the Wish is for you. If you like Rapunzel, the Magic is for you. If you like superheroes and particularly Marvel, the Destiny is for you. If you like park stuff, I'll tell you the Treasure is for you, right? Like, so there are different, I do think it is more heavily Marvel, although, as Brian mentioned, it's not even half. If you actually go through and figure out all the different theming, it's not even close to half. It's maybe like a quarter. It's just much more than any of the other ships. But we like Marvel. I mean, we're not like Marvel crazy super fans, but we like the MCU, and I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be great, but I'm also really here for Hero Mini. That's all I need to say. She is the she's going to be on the front of the ship, on the stern, and is it the stern, right? Yeah, the bow is the back, the stern is the front. Or what
opposite.
Is it the opposite? Okay, whatever. The front of the ship, whatever that thing is called, I never remember. I always mix it up. I don't even know which way is port or starboard unless I like remember. Port is the same length as left. But anyway, I love Hero Mini. She's going to be on the front of the ship, and I'm really excited for that. She's literally my favorite of those sort of front ship characters.
And I do have to say too, I definitely agree with Brian. Like, on here on OG55, we are very on a positive note. We always look at the glass half full instead of half empty. And with every new Disney cruise ship, it's like Disney always kind of like ups their game. It's like, how can we make this ship better than the last ship? And then of course we're going to have the Tokyo one, which is probably going to have a freaking skyscraper attached to it. Because
exactly.
Well, it's going to be Wish class, so it can't be that different from the Wish and the Treasure and the Destiny, George. So don't worry too much.
Because it seems like especially like with Tokyo, like of how they utilize their funds, so to speak. They how do I put this diplomatically? They're not cheap. So
they're definitely not cheap, and they like to innovate, and so I'm sure that ship will be absolutely incredible.
But really quick, I do want to go back to Sam's point when she had mentioned about wanting a ship permanently for the West Coast. That was also my intent, because I think that would be such a great benefit for even the Disneyland resort, because then you could have a land and sea vacation. It's very popular down in Florida with Walt Disney World. Plus, with Disneyland Forward coming along, and it's going to expand the parks. I mean, what a great way to even attach a permanent Disney cruise ship to that. Yeah, and
I'm going to need to spend a week in Disneyland. That means, I guess.
And that's probably Disney's like long-term goal for all the travelers. But I also wanted to get your guys' opinion on too, because I was thinking of some other destinations in my mind, and I do know Disney seems to be heavily involving themselves in South America lately, particularly with Brazil. They're going to hold a D23 event this coming November. We're getting the Tropical Americas and Animal Kingdom.
They did a Run Disney event down there too, actually, I think just last month.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
And there was also talks of a pavilion in Epcot, down the road, like for Brazil. So I mean, they're involving themselves heavily in Brazil. So could we possibly see a port in South America?
I mean, Josh said on stage, like that. I forget the exact wording, but when he talked about this, he said, "We want to bring Disney. This enables us to bring Disney to more people, right? More places and more people." And so, one, I think that for me hinted at exactly what you're talking about, George. The second thing it hinted at for me was, well, you can't keep getting bigger then, because the bigger you go, the fewer ports you can get these ships into these days. So, that sort of is what's factoring in for me, that they might do something with a new class of ship. I could absolutely see something in South America, at least part of the year, right? Sending a ship down for part of the year there, the way they do with Europe. I could see them maybe permanently basing something in the Med at some point, or doing something more where the ship stays sort of over on that like Europe kind of EMEA side of things, to try to bring Disney to that part of the world. I mean, they're basically going to have permanent ships now in Asia too. I think the other thing to clue into is the kind of the original thinking around Disney Cruise Line was to kind of attach a ship to each park. And the way we're talking about the West Coast, right? So they've got Port Canaveral. They'd have something maybe in like Long Beach. They're going to have something now in Tokyo. The Singapore ship, it can get up to China, I guess, but it's probably not going to primarily serve that market. Yeah. But having something over in Europe now would also get you something with Disneyland Paris potentially. So I could see them doing lots of different things. And I think it would really appeal to Disney Cruise Line fans who are just begging for more. They want more ports. They want more destinations. They want new itineraries. They want to stop sailing the Caribbean all the time. So I think it's a no brainer to do something with some of these places.
And they also tested having a ship done in like New Zealand and Australia, which I've heard that it has gotten a lot of positive reviews with the locals living in New Zealand and Australia. So there's a possibility maybe a permanent ship goes down over there. But with 13 ships total right now, and as far as for what I know, because Disney's still kind of like a baby in a sense in the cruise line industry. You have all these other cruise liners that have like in the history like 20-25 plus ships that's on their roster. And even though 13 is a lot for Disney, but technically it's nothing compared to
Carnival or Royal. That's still tiny compared to Carnival or Royal. So yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of opportunity. They are going back to New Zealand and Australia this year in the fall. They'll be headed over there in October, and then they'll stay there till February. And so far the calendar for the following year looks the same. So yeah, I mean, I really think they're investing in that market. I do think Brazil would be another really smart market, because there are a lot of Disney fans down there, and they already have existing relationships down there.
Although what's interesting about their go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I would say what's interesting about their strategy, though, with some of these is they're not really aimed at the U.S. market. They're not sending the ship to Australia, New Zealand to get U.S. tourists over there to see the place. They're definitely not doing that with the Adventure. So if you think about other locations, like Europe is the only other place where U.S. travelers really kind of head en masse to take a Disney cruise. So I would love to see if they're going to diversify ports and itineraries. Like, I understand building the market and you have to do some of that, but also kind of give us a little bit of a reason to come over and see these markets and sail these ships with some itineraries that are friendly to U.S. travelers too. So yeah.
Yeah, well said. And it's interesting too. It's kind of an interesting beta test actually for like the theme parks as well, because you're right. So you can kind of like, you can do these destinations, like you were saying, George, like New Zealand and all these various countries, and you can kind of beta test. Okay, does that market embrace the Disney brand? And you kind of get a feel for it before you kind of plant your permanent flag with like a theme park or something like that, where before they didn't really have that luxury to do it. Now it's like, okay, we can kind of get a feel for like if a park there would do well or not based on how well the cruise line does and stuff. So
and I do hope eventually, like when they have a ship based in, just to say, Brazil or Australia or New Zealand or some other European ports, I do hope that eventually they'll rotate the ships. So for people that may not be able to get, overseas or internationally, they could still get a taste of the new ship, and they could send, the ones in the US ports over to Australia or Europe, just kind of do like a revolving door, so to speak, just like keep shuffling them around.
Yeah, I think they'll do some of that. The issue with that is the Panama Canal and how expensive it is to take ships through the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal, of course, as well. If you're talking about going to Asia, so there are some issues with that. But I do think that they've started to show us that they're willing to at least rotate which ships are going to Europe, right? So it used to be the Magic would go to Europe pretty much every year. Then the Dream went to Europe. Now the last 2 years, including this year, the Fantasy is going next year. So they're doing a little bit of rotating, but there are, I think, some limitations also on size. Because of who can go under the Vancouver Bridge and things like that. So right now, the Magic and the Wonder can, but the Fantasy and the Dream and the Wish can't. And so there are some issues that they'll have to work out. But with new ships, maybe they'll have, foldable masts and things like that will enable them to traverse more places or deal with those bridge issues.
And also taken into consideration too, with some of the newer ships, primarily speaking about the Disney Adventure, that the ship is designed geared more towards Asian culture and everything. So I think more so that would more so stay in that realm, in that location. But well, actually, speaking of the Disney Adventure, they just recently showcased some of the images.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys think about this?
I think it's beautiful. That this area that sort of looks like the Central Park areas in the Oasis class on Royal ships. This is sort of open, green areas. I think it looks like it'll end up being a beautiful ship. It is a very large ship, so for my Disney standards, that's kind of scaring, I think, a lot of us. But again, it's not built for our market too, though, as George pointed out. So, I'm not sure that we'll ever get a chance to sail on her. I hope that we do. But I don't think that I'm her target audience. And so that's okay if I don't. But I think she's going to be beautiful. It does seem like they're throwing an awful lot of IP on her. So I think that's going to be pretty cool to see all the different theme spaces. I love I don't need to be on a ship where Disney IP is thrown everywhere, but I think it's going to in pretty cool.
Yeah, this ship is definitely getting some IP tattoos for sure.
Oh, for sure. And the interesting thing about this ship is I think it could be very, in a lot of ways, very revolutionary for the Disney Cruise Line in general, because this is a huge departure from the standard Disney Cruise look.
Totally.
Right? This is a totally different style for what they usually do. Most of the ships kind of have a general same kind of aesthetic. This one is a complete departure, which is exciting in my opinion, because I want to see them play more in different aesthetics, in different stuff. This is very interesting. This is like Fantasyland on water, basically, It's pretty cool.
I would love to see them I love the Central Park sort of, space on the Royal Caribbean ships. I'd love to see them continue this with newer ships. The problem is they have to be a certain size for it to really, really work. And I'm just not sure that they'll ever build anything the size of the Adventure again. But the spaces look nice. I think that they're appropriately balanced and understated from the artwork. I've heard some people complain they're too bland, and I'm like, well, you don't want IP in your face, and you don't want it to be like there's Goldilocks syndromes around here somewhere. I love this castle feature that you're showing right now. I think that is just a great way to kind of it all leads up and kind of comes up to this castle. The only issue I'm having with the Adventure right now is that she's supposed to have her maiden voyage next year. We know everything now about the Destiny. Her itineraries will be released very soon. She opens booking September 6th. We've got some renderings of the Adventure for a few spaces. There's not been a launch event. And so I really thought we would see shortly after.
We know very little. Yeah.
Yeah. I thought we would see after D23 and the big Destiny 3-day announce, we would see something in the Asian market aimed at, revealing the Adventure, and we haven't seen it yet. And so I'm hearing from some friends who are cruise enthusiasts who live over there who want to go. They're like, when is she going to sail?
People keep asking us when she's going to sail, and we're like, we don't know. This is a huge question mark. I mean, they said 2025, but 2025 is coming on quickly. It's we're at the end of August right now, so I'm not sure when she's going to sail.
And this is one of Chapek's best decisions. I think this was the ship that actually they bought like halfway through the building process or something like that.
Yes.
And he bought it for pennies on the dollar. And it's it's looking, at least from the renderings and stuff, like it's going to be a beautiful ship. I mean, a really smart decision on their part to grab this one for so cheap.
Some would say a really dumb decision, though, too.
Oh,
at the
interesting.
Same time, So it's
Yeah.
I think it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? I think this was hard for Disney Cruise Line. This was, from what we've heard from insiders, this Disney Cruise Line, like, people were not involved in this decision. Like, Chapek made this decision out on his own. And so when he told them, like, hey, this is what we're doing, and they were like, what? Like, because I don't think the folks, well, I don't think Chapek and the folks around him realize how much work it was going to be to change this ship into a Disney ship, because you can't just like slap some paint on it and call it Disney Cruise Line, right? You got to really do this design work. You got to really work with the Imagineers. You got to put the right IP. You got to talk to all the different owners of the different IP, even like sort of the folks even within within Disney, to sort of make sure that everything syncs with the different like universes and the different brands. And so that's something I'm not sure they contemplated how much work this was going to be.
and from what we've heard, they got it for a steal. And then the amount of money they've had to pour into it, they've essentially bought the ship. Like it's not been the savings that I think they thought it was going to be. Yeah,
that's interesting. That's interesting.
So that doesn't mean necessarily a bad decision. That's why I said it's in the eye of the beholder as to whether or not it's a good decision or a bad decision. I think it looks beautiful, like you all do. But I think it's more than they sort of knew what they were getting when they made this decision.
Yeah, fascinating. I never considered that, because you're taking, you bought it for cheaper, absolutely,
right.
but now you got to like basically work within the parameter of a ship that's like 60% built already,
right? It's like gutting a house, right? And all the way to the studs.
Or like buying a lemon car, and it's like you buy it for $50, but then the amount of money you have to put into it, it's like I should have just bought a Tesla.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I really hope, though. I mean, it's very different on the inside. You know, this is very like Polynesian resort style kind of. You know,
yeah.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I just hope that Disney kind of runs with this and they get a little more ballsy, so to speak, with future ships and trying stuff that's not the usual, and like get a little bit creative and play in that sandbox, you know.
Totally. Hopefully. I think this is the Grandma Cala's restaurant that you're showing right now. So Moana themed, and it's really beautiful and obviously very Polynesian feel to it. Yeah.
This ship was also supposed to have a roller coaster on top of it from its original build. And so whether Disney will follow through with that or not, like, I cannot believe that Carnival beat them to having a roller coaster at sea, and I'm just like, you gotta make something happen here. Like the water rides, the aqueduct, it's fun, they're great, but you're Disney. Like let's get something just really cool on one of these ships from like almost like an attraction kind of basis. So yeah.
You know, I'm really surprised. That's a great point, Brian, and I'm really surprised Disney hasn't done some sort of like simulator based thing in one of their cruise ships.
That's what I keep saying, that would be the ideal thing for Disney to do, because they do it so well and it wouldn't take up the space of a roller coaster, right? The roller coaster is an issue because it takes up so much deck space. Now it's possible on the ship like the Adventure to do it, but not on a ship like the Magic or the Wonder or even the Wish class ships, you know.
And I do have to say, okay, Brian.
I was gonna say that I think that floor technology they've been showing would be really interesting on board a cruise ship in a small space. The one thing that I flag every time Sam talks about this is just the mechanics of having a virtual reality kind of thing happening while a ship is moving. Ocean.
I know. He keeps telling me this. The movement thing might be a little bit.
They'll keep the custodial staff busy.
Bring your Dramamine for sure.
Right. That's right.
But I will say though, on a somewhat of a negative note for me, and this is on the Wish, and I think it's also going to be on the Treasure and the Destiny as well, is that huge amount of space that they utilize for that. Basically, what I'm calling that bouncy house obstacle course.
The Hero Zone. Yeah, the Hero Zone with the Incredicourse. Well, the Incredicourse is only out and open for one day on each sailing.
So they utilize that space for other
things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
it was one of the best decisions they made was the Hero Zone's a flex space. So like they have it open for basketball and stuff near the teen club during the day. They do like a bunch of the stuff they would do in the atrium there, like the putt competition or the Jack Diaper Dash. And it has, and
that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at night they've
actually up above. So you can
at night they've used it for. At night, they've used it for an Oogie Boogie dance party for adults, and they bring out Oogie Boogie and turn it into like his Oogie Boogie's lair. So like it took outdoor basketball space and closed it so you could still play basketball in it, but then they have the flexibility now to kind of put a bunch of different things in and out of that space throughout.
Okay, that makes more sense, because I was going to say, because if that was just utilized just for that, I was like half tempted to like take a pine needle, go in there and go,
no. So the Incredicourse is actually quite fun though. So one day, so on the Wish, you're either on a 3-night or a 4-night cruise, and one essentially full day will be the day that the Incredicourse is out. And that means they put up this huge blow up thing. It really does take up like the entire space of the floor space down below in the Hero Zone. And they have it as like free time, and then they run like competitions too. So people, as a family, you'll be like a team of 4 people and you'll race another family and stuff like that. So
I would say you don't want to get me on there because I'm very competitive. I'll be knocking people over.
That's great. Now, before we move on to the parks, I want to ask you, Brian and Sam, this is actually a curiosity of mine, and I don't know if you guys know the answer either, but
I do have a question for them also. So if it's the same as yours, if it's not, then I also have a question after that.
No, absolutely. We were talking about the Wonder and the Magic, right? They're getting up there in age and everything. And the Wonder is my first ship, so my heart will always be on the Wonder. But
I love the Wonder. It's our favorite ship. Even though it wasn't our first ship, the Fantasy was our first ship, but the Wonder is both mine and Brian's favorite ship.
Okay, so you just covered my first part of my question. What was your favorite ship?
Love the Wonder. But what do they do? Like, let's just say they decommission some of these, right? Let's say they decommission, the Wonder and the Magic, right? Is it like, what do they do? Do they sink these like military ships to the bottom of the ocean? Or what do they do with these ships?
So typically a cruise line around 25 years is a good number that they would typically then start to look at selling it down market. So what happens with a lot of ships is you'll see them, they're a Carnival ship, and then, they're a Costa ship, and then they're a really budget cruise line. And so they kind of sell them down market. Disney, I think, has some challenges if they're thinking about selling these ships down market because they have such a unique style and they're like packed with their own IP. It will cost a lot of money to get that off the ship, and they're not going to want some budget cruise line to basically be like, come take like a low-end Disney cruise because we have their ship. So we think what they'll do is maximize the life of these ships out to 30, 40 years. And then what happens, there's videos online, these ships sail to a remote beach in India, they rev the engines, beach the ship, and it just gets slowly dismantled in the graveyard. Yeah,
there's a cruise ship graveyard in India. That's where all cruise ships go to die.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
See, that's
all dogs go to heaven. Cruise ships go to India.
That's wild. So it's a real beach in India where they that literally just do that. They pull it up and just let it basically rot.
Yep.
For
no, they have sheet metal workers who come out and they slowly dismantle the ship. Like they gut things and resell them, for other cruise lines who need them and parts and all that sort of stuff. They'll salvage engine parts if they're needed. I mean, the other thing that's happening with the Wonder and the Magic is, frankly, they're operating on diesel engines, and now you've got ships being built that are on liquid natural gas and the green ethanol, I think, is what they're using for the Adventure, as the environmental standards have gone up. So sooner or later, these ships are not going to be able to meet the environmental standards for the ports where they want to go, and that will also be kind of the time that they need to start to exit the fleet. But yeah, they get salvaged basically and torn apart. So lots of kinds of ships head over there for that. Yeah, no, there are some cruise ships that get sunk to make natural reefs. I could see Disney sort of saying, let's, with their environmental kind of commitment, we've made an agreement. We're going to sink the ship here and allow it to form a natural reef for fish and wildlife. But most of these things end up just getting scrapped. So yeah.
That would be the perfect title for a movie. All ships go to India.
All ships go to India. Exactly. That's right.
There you go. We got to call Don Bluth and make it happen.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. The next family blockbuster,
But I think that is very fascinating because you're right. In time, unfortunately, we hate to see these ships go, but all good things must come to an end, especially cruise ships. They do have a certain amount of leg life, and the Magic and the Wonder are getting up there. My question is, because Brian, you had mentioned like you're guesstimating between like 30 to 40 years. So are you seeing the Magic and the Wonder going for like another 10, 15 years? especially I can't remember like when they did their dry docks for their reimagining, because they added the Rapunzel restaurant in the Magic, Tiana's in the Wonder. So how long of a gap do you think that these two ships in particular have left?
So Josh, so the thing that is guiding my thinking, I originally thought some of these ships that they announced would just be replacements for the Magic and the Wonder, because, you know, by 2031, these things will be, you know, ending the normal lifespan that a cruise line would typically operate the ships. But they emphasize so much this, like, our fleet is growing to 13. It's in the press release. Josh said it. Like, so it makes me think that after they build this round of ships, we're going to get an announcement about maybe more, right? Like 2 more ships to replace the Magic and the Wonder. Finally, maybe they'll even rebuild them at a similar size. I keep hoping they'll just name them the Magic and the Wonder. That's not unusual to rename a ship after a ship you've sort of decommissioned. But cool. Yeah, so like
or the Magic
I do see
2,
them,
like the QE.
Yeah, the Magic
right?
2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do see them staying beyond the 2031 timeframe when all the ships come out, because they've made such a big deal about the fleet being 13 once everything comes out. And so, you know, they're going to last at least that long, and then it's going to take them a couple years to build a ship. I have every confidence they're going to hit pause in 2031 for a couple of years as well, because this is a lot of investment in a very short period of time. And I think, you know, they'll need quite literally to get their sea legs underneath them as a business to make sure that all these things are working. But so I mean, I could imagine at least until 2035 for these 2 ships before they would replace them. So yeah.
Love it. Okay. I fell in love with the Wonder. As long as they can go, please just, you know, keep going.
She may be the West Coast. She may be the West Coast ship. She may be the one they stick on the West Coast, because then it's less taxing on the ship if they're just kind of sailing up and down the coast, as opposed to you know, trying to sail the open Pacific, the open Atlantic. And then I have a feeling that might be why they pulled them in and away from doing some of those sailings over to Europe, because the Atlantic can really beat up a ship. But we could see them pull them back from the Pacific too, because the Wonder's the one going to Australia right now. So yeah. And
when I did the Wonder, it was at West Coast sailing. We went to Cabo.
Yeah.
So it was West Coast base. Go ahead,
I have a special place for the Magic and the Wonder, because those were the first 2 ships, and you know, they're smaller than the other ships, but they're very mighty. And sometimes it's not the size of the ship; it's all that's like incorporated in them. And honestly, they just have this kind of special charm to them, sort of kind of like how Disneyland Park is. You know, Disneyland Park is very small, but it's very mighty. My first cruise ship, actually, which will always be my home ship, is the Disney Dream, because that was my first ship. And as I said, you answered my question. What are you guys' favorite Disney cruise ships? Which is the Wonder. But I wanted to ask you, I'm going to see how I could ask this. So you guys have been on multiple kind of Disney, not just Disney, but just different cruises, like through like Virgin, I'm assuming.
We're going on Virgin next month. So we haven't been on Virgin yet, but Brian and I were leaving kiddo with grandma, and we're headed to Florida to go on a Virgin sailing, but we haven't done that one yet. We've both done Celebrity, but many, many years ago. And then more recently, we went on Royal, more because it hits sort of a lot of the same demographics as Disney Cruise Line, and we really wanted to see, you know, what else was out there. We have a Princess Cruise booked that we're going to be having to move probably because of the Destiny maiden voyage. So we're trying to, you know, hit some other cruise lines for sure, because we do think it's important to, 1, not get tunnel vision, and 2, be able to like communicate to our listeners and our community like what else might be out there, particularly because Disney Cruise Line has such a high price point.
And I was just going to ask that if the 2 of you can kind of elaborate on that, like some of the pros and the cons to a Disney cruise, or opposite to some of their competition. Like what do you recommend? Do you, like, if someone couldn't afford a Disney cruise, like, is there another cruise line that you would recommend, or a specific ship? If you would like to elaborate on that a bit.
So I'll let Brian take this one. I think he's great at this compare contrast stuff.
Yeah, so I'm actually a big fan of the Royal Oasis class ships, and I think they tick a lot of boxes. So if Disney's very expensive for you, Royal is a great option. Now, some of their newer ships, the price point is equivalent with Disney. So like, don't head for Icon of the Siege. The value is really in kind of the Oasis class ships before the new ship, which the name is escaping me right now. But the newest Oasis class ship will probably be pretty. Utopia will probably be pretty pricey for a while. But you know, the Oasis, the original Oasis of the Seas we've sailed on, she was great. We sailed on Symphony, right?
No, we sailed on Allure. We're going to sail on
Allure.
Symphony.
We're due
I
to
think
sail on
Wonder
Symphony.
of the Seas is the same size as well and similar. Yeah.
So I think Royal has a lot of pros to it. I will say the key difference for me between Royal and Disney is when I step on a Disney. So I stepped back on a Disney ship for the first time in a while. A few months ago for the Lighthouse Point preview cruise. And I'd been on Royal and I've been a big proponent of Royal. And I'm like, Royal's going to be great. We're going to sail Royal at least once every year now. And I stepped on the Disney ship and I immediately thought, this isn't Royal. It's very calm here. It just feels calmer on this ship. It feels quieter. The spaces don't feel like they're just like, you know, complete people everywhere. Like I just felt immediate relaxation on a Disney ship. Now it could be because we've sailed so many times. It just felt like home. I don't know. But it felt like a relaxing experience, and that carried through for me to like Castaway, Lighthouse Point. There's no huge water slides. There's not a big pool with a DJ. You know, there's not unlimited drink packages. So like everything just feels just chiller on Disney Cruise Line, right? High level of service, chill environment. Royal, I do love, like, I love all of the stuff you can do. We love doing the escape room on board, all the specialty restaurants you can do.
Rider is so cool.
The Flow Rider. I love a good, you know, freshwater pool on a private island. So like, I think it has its place, but they are two very different vacation experiences. And so if you want something more relaxing, Disney is where to relax in my mind.
But the demographics they hit are really similar. So like when you're talking about family friendly cruise lines, and that's the category that we tend to focus on. We do talk about Princess and Celebrity and Norwegian and Holland, you know, and compare and contrast usually with our guests on our show. But like if you're talking about family focused cruising, Disney and Royal are really the two.
Our son loves Royal.
Yeah, with Carnival as another one that's up there as well, but obviously that's a little bit more in the budget category. Disney is considered in the premium category, Royal is considered in like the moderate category, sort of. If I'm sort of classifying them in that.
I've been told by a lot of people that Carnival is kind of known as like the party ships.
It depends on the sailing.
Depends.
Yeah, they can be, but like
free
the free night out of Miami. The
sailing.
Yeah, the shorter the sailing, but that's true on every cruise line. The shorter the sailing, the more of a party crowd you're going to get, the more rowdy it's going to be, because it's going to, like those weekend cruises in general, that's going to be more rowdy. If you're even on Royal, it's the same. So like that more matters what itinerary you pick. Not and a little bit less on what cruise you pick. If you go on a Carnival cruise to Alaska, it's not going to be a party crowd. It's going to skew, like all Alaska cruises skew, a little older, right? So, you know, a lot of those decisions really have more to do with the itinerary and the number of nights than they do with the cruise line. But overall, if I were recommending, I agree with Brian. If I were recommending another cruise line as an alternative to Disney, I'd probably say Royal, not just for families, but also for younger childless adults. If you like a little bit of a party scene, but not a crazy party scene, Royal's got that too.
Keep your eye on Celebrity and Princess. Celebrity's on the higher end, closer to Disney. Princess is closer to Royal. They're both making a push into the family market now. And so like families are the demographic cruise lines are after now. And so there's a ton of competition in this market space. And we've heard great things about Princess and Celebrity too. So, yeah.
And in the adult market, I mean, we're hearing great things about Virgin. So.
And I'm okay with like the party life. Like me, I'm crazy. Like I'll surf the crowds. Like, just keep me off the edge.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I wanted to ask you guys. There's been rumors, like murmurs out there in the fandom, that Universal might get into this game. Do you think that's a possibility?
I think more likely a partnership. Yeah, pre-pandemic, I would have said yes, probably, but I think more likely they'll enter into some kind of partnerships with Royal, maybe with Carnival to like use to do sort of cross promotion and use some of the IP that Universal has access to onto some of the ships. So I could see that happening, but I'm not thinking they're actually going to get into the cruise line space. It's a huge investment to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and Brian.
yeah.
Oh no, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, because I got a question. If you want to, whatever.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think the pandemic upended a lot of things for a lot of companies. Like there was rumors that Disney Cruise Line was going to be building its own river cruise ships pre-pandemic, and now that's just not in the cards at this point. So I will tell you,
they do river cruising with AMA Waterways on Adventures by Disney. So they have a river cruising product. It's just not owned and run completely by Disney.
If they park a Harry Potter themed ship next to the Wish in Port Canaveral, all bets are off in terms of who's going to win that battle. So,
or if you go to an island and it's like Jurassic Park, like they park you right there and you get out there and there's like animatronic dinos, that'd be great. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, if they do that, like I want those dinos to like really draw blood. Like, like I want people to have sign a waiver like before they get off the
I'm
ship.
not going to that island. I'll go to Harry Potter Island. I'm not going to Jurassic Park. No, thank you.
But, that's hilarious.
I don't understand why people went back to that island. People, I don't
get it.
Right?
It's like even with Jaws, it's like just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, why? But Brian, you had mentioned Lighthouse Point. Now I wanted to ask you because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews on Lighthouse Point.
Don't believe the negativity, George. Don't believe the
negativity. Yes. I actually wanted to hear it from someone that actually got to experience, because I didn't get a chance to experience it yet. So what's your take on?
Yeah. So I did a show off of Lighthouse Point, and I was, I'm in the minority in the community in terms of the thinking here, but I think I'm in the growing minority, or I'm in the, what do I want to call it? I'm in the silent majority in some way. Like there's enough people out there who like it who just don't want to get involved in this debate. Look, Lighthouse Point is not a clone of Castaway Cay. I think that was the first thing that I had to get over. Like we showed up to Lighthouse Point. I said this in our review of it. After traipsing around that island all day in the heat and I was meeting the Disney PR people and interviewing people and trying to get photos of everything, I was like, this stinks. Like, this is just the worst. And like, after I got back to the ship and showered and was having a drink, I was like mulling in my head. I was like, what is it? Like, what is it that I don't like about this island? And my immediate reaction was, well, it's not Castaway. And I was like, but it's not supposed to be. Right. So like, let's put that aside. And now just like, if this was the first private island Disney had built, what are the issues? The pier is long. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That thing is long. It can get hot. It's not great in inclement weather, as some videos have shown, but it is what it is sort of my sort of thing. And I sort of look at it and go, the amount of walking I do in a park to get from ride to ride, or even at home, like to park someplace and get to a beach, it can be a long walk.
Try walking to Pandora in Animal Kingdom from like the Animal Kingdom parking lots.
Oh yeah.
And so the pier is the pier, and it's built for a reason. And so like, once I understood the reason it was built, which is the the environmental protection, I was like, okay, this island may not have existed but for this pier. So the pier is what it is. And Disney will have to figure out how to overcome some of these challenges they're facing. I'm confident they will. The other situation that happened on the island was these flies on the food, and like what we came to find out was, it's the first time, like they didn't take a ship offline and go here like 4 or 5 times with cast to test things out. Literally the preview cruise was the first time a ship docked at that island. And it was the first time like people got off en masse onto the island. In fact, we were held back on the ship for 2 hours while the crew went on the island to get training before they let us off. And so it's the first time they set out all of this food. And it's like, the construction, the defoliation of the island, which they're, now replenishing, like it just stirred up all of these flies that came to the food. The next sailing, the next stop, they were already like, okay, what do we do? How are we trying? How are we fixing it? They're covering food, putting fans out. Then, the fantasy came, things were still not solved. We went on to 4 times to Lighthouse Point over 2 weeks. By the 4th stop, it was like, okay, if I was having a barbecue in a park, I'd probably see a fly or 2 around my food the way I'm seeing it right now. So I think the real value in Lighthouse Point that you have to get past is it's not Castaway. The beaches are stunning, and there is just a whole heap of promise for what this island can become over time as Disney continues to develop it. And the last thing I'll say about it that I just love is the infusion of the Bahamian culture into the island itself. And having been able to talk to some of the artists involved in that, the musicians involved in that, and how they partnered with Disney to make this stuff happen. I was like, well, they were so proud of this. So it hurts me when I see people, talking about how it's cheap and all this stuff, because I'm like, that's not how the Bahamians see it. The Bahamians see it as a reflection of their culture that they're particularly proud of. And so once you kind of shift that perspective, like suddenly it's like, okay, now I see.
I was just going to say that's a really good perspective on it, because when you look at it through that kind of optic lens, it's like other people are so fast to criticize, to say, oh, well, this is not Castaway Cay, this is garbage. But it's an insult to the people that live there, that run, that run the operations of the island and what have you. So yeah, when you look at it through that aspect. But I have noticed too that a lot of YouTube videos that I have seen, the one thing that I've seen everybody agree with is how beautiful and how crystal clear the water is.
Gorgeous. It's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. It's more beautiful than Castaway in that respect, honestly. I mean, Castaway and Lookout Cay are two different places, as Brian mentioned. But the water and the sand are even nicer at Lookout. Yeah.
How is that even possible? I went to
Wow. I'm telling you. You got to get
amazing.
there.
It's also not a protected cove on either side of the island. You're open to the ocean. So it's like going to the beach in like Florida, right? But with this like pink sand, and it's very shallow out into the water.
And you're in the Bahamas.
But the protected cove at Castaway, when we went to Castaway after Lighthouse, I actually got off the ship and was kind of looking around going, this place needs some upgrades, because like the protected cove causes the water levels at different times to like be really low in certain places on that island. And so you got to wait for the tide to come in. So you're at the mercy of the tide, in terms of how much water you have available to you to actually swim and be in. So this doesn't have that problem, right? So it's gorgeous. I really encourage people to go try it out. It has its issues. Just know those going in and be prepared for them. So we've had people who've come to us talking about how it wasn't great for my little kids because of the pier walk. We hear you. Disney's got wagons you can borrow. Maybe think about bringing a stroller with you, because a lot of people will bring a stroller on a cruise just because the kids can't, even walk the full cruise ship all the time, right? So just prepare, and then you're going to have, I think, a fabulous time once you get there, right? So
totally.
Well said.
And that's a great perspective to look at it. Even with the parks, when there's a new ride or there's a new offering, and then people go to like the very first one and they say, okay, this is like really below my expectations. Well, it's something brand new. It has to work out the kinks and everything.
I gotta say, the fandom a lot of times drives me nuts. I say it all the time on the channel. I mean, we had years. I mean, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but we literally had years of the fandom saying, "Well, hey, we don't want any blue sky at the D23 Expos anymore. We're sick of blue sky. We want concrete announcements, and we want dates and timelines." Josh gets up there and he gives you a ton of stuff. I mean, stuff for California that I didn't even expect, like the Coco Dark ride and the second Avengers ride.
Yes.
We
got lots of boats, but it's okay.
It's okay, right? It's okay. And he was basically going down the fan wish list, like, okay, concrete, no blue sky, timelines, extra stuff, all this stuff. And then people are still complaining now. And I'm like, sometimes I feel like Disney needs to sort of like kind of tune out the noise and just kind of do what Disney wants to do, because I don't even know if the fans know what they want.
And we were there
because they want everything. They want everything new until you give them something new, right?
Right.
And we were there in the arena. We were at the Honda Center, and like it erupted with applause and cheering and noise. Yeah. And we're like, okay, they hit it grand slam out of the ballpark. Right. We exit out of the Honda Center. We go on our phones, and Twitter is blowing up.
Give us something new, but don't change anything.
Don't change anything. Yeah.
Don't change anything.
A friend of mine. The two reactions I had. So a friend of mine, I was talking to him about this, and he had a podcast for a long time, and he's kind of stepped away from it, and it's just like, I'm just kind of done with it. And I was mentioning to him, like, it's just crazy to me, like the differences in these reactions. He's like, here's the thing. Like, I've been talking to people. He was on a Disney cruise at the time. He's like, I've been talking to people. 99% of them don't even know what's being talked about on Twitter. he's like 90% of them don't even know about these new announcements. They're just going to show up to a park one day and there's going to be a new ride. And they're like, cool, let's try it out. See how it is.
Well,
So,
and they're not even going to know
Exactly.
what rides are there. They're also going to be like fast pass, multi pass. What? Like they don't, most
well, that's
people
its
who
own
go-
problem. But
yeah, most people who go to the parks though really don't have that depth or level of understanding of what used to be there, right, and what is there now, and all of that. It's only like Disney nerds and podcasters like us who care about these things.
Well, it was interesting. I saw someone too on Twitter sort of saying like, is Disney should be a museum, kind of thing. And I was like, I was immediately lashed on this. Was like, a museum even rotates its exhibits. You do understand that, right? Like they don't just like bolt the art to the wall and never change it. Like they rotate. Like what you're asking for is for it to be like a historically preserved location where nothing ever changes. And
is it Pompeii? I mean, is it that important?
And how anti-Walt can you get? He made it very clear he wanted this thing to change and evolve. It was a creative sandbox.
Right. It'll never be finished, right?
So they're basically saying we got to go by Walt's wishes and not touch it at all.
Right.
That's like it's like
no sense. It makes no
sense.
I'd rather Disney try and fail than just rest on laurels and don't do anything. I'd rather them try something. Hey, that didn't work. Okay, next time,
Right. And if they don't, then everybody's going to Universal to Epic Universe. So they're screwed, right? If they don't do anything different.
It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
And speaking of the parks, how do you guys like navigate the parks? Like what is like your typical way of how do you do the Disney parks? Do you have a favorite park? Do you have a favorite destination? All of the above. Have you ever been to the any of the international parks?
I have for a single day been to Disneyland Paris before it was called Disneyland Paris. So that will tell you it was when it was Euro Disney. I was there for a single day before the studios were built there. But I'll be honest, it was 20 years ago. I'm aging myself clearly. But so I'll be honest and say I really don't remember it. We have been, Brian has not been to any of the international parks, but we've spent a ton of time at Disneyland. We go to Disney World as well. We spend more time at Disneyland because we're West Coast based than Disney World, but we both grew up on the East Coast. So we actually both went to Disney World more when we were younger than we did Disneyland. And so things have obviously shifted. So we consider our home park to be the Disneyland Resort. I will say my favorite park, this might be controversial, but I don't care, is California Adventure. And I will say that probably until I die. I think that it is just amazing. Love Avengers Campus. I love Cars Land. You just can pry those out of my cold dead hand.
You'd be surprised, Sam. There's been a lot of people we've been talking to on the podcast and friends of the channel and stuff like that who have gone to Disneyland Resort for the first time and have come back and said the same thing.
Yeah.
DCA.
It's the best.
I think it has some of the best rides that Disney has put together. Some of the best like rethemed rides that they've done. Like I think the Incredicoaster retheme is actually fun. Like I think it's a kind of a fun thing that they did with that. And the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, I think is just so much fun. Now my favorite ride at any Disney park is the Guardians of the Galaxy at Epcot. But pound for pound in terms of what's offered, like it is amazing. They have packed essentially the same number of rides across 4 different parks at Disney World in 2
close
parks. Close to in California, with a lot of them being in California Adventure. So I think that is a great park.
And most of the time, the better ride, if you have the same ride, most of the time, the better ride is in California. Sorry for those Walt Disney World fans. There are a couple of exceptions. The ride formerly known as Splash Mountain, now known as Tiana's Bayou, better at Walt Disney World. It's just the ride vehicle you don't get quite as wet. But like, Space Mountain, clearly the winner is California, right? Yeah. So like there's some things where the ride is the same, but not the same. And so usually California wins in that respect.
To answer George's question about how we approach the parks. So we're DVC owners at both coasts. And so like our approach has really changed over time. Like the few times we visit Disney, it was like, do everything. We tend to be the people, we get up early. We take advantage of the early access because we usually stay on property, right? We get some rides knocked out. My goal is usually like 1 or 2, e-ticket kind of attractions in a park. And then, maybe a couple of other things. And then like, I'm out of there by lunchtime to go sit by the pool for several hours, just relax. And then we'll get kind of, put ourselves together and head to a nice dinner, catch a show in the evening in the parks, maybe hit a couple more rides. But we're not the go people anymore. We're kind of more, if I don't get to ride this time, I'll be back. I'll ride next time.
You're my people. You're my people. I am the same way. I mean, I'm totally a vibes over rides kind of guy. And
we love the street atmosphere. We love walking, Main Street. We'll do a little shopping. We might buy some what is that? The churro toffee thing that you like, Brian. We might buy that. We love to walk around, and we do like rides. And as Brian mentioned, he loves, Guardians of the Galaxy. I love Tron at Walt Disney World. I also love Flight of Passage. So we like intense rides too. But like, I don't need to go on every ride, every trip, because we go enough. And especially if they're ones that are really exactly the same, like love Rise of the Resistance. But if I skip that at Walt Disney World, that's fine because I've got it at Disneyland. No big deal. It's the same ride.
Yeah, see, I'm the same way as you guys as well, because I find myself like in the middle. It's like I don't live in Florida, I don't live in California yet, but I kind of I'm like a hybrid of like a tourist, but as a local, because it's like I travel, but I travel a lot.
Yeah.
Where it's like I might as well should just be a local. And I have that mentality of a local where it's like if I just take a whole morning, just sit on a bench and people watch and sit there with my Dole Whip, it's like I'm good with that.
Yeah.
Or it's like, and then it's like, okay, I'm in the mood to ride some rides. I'll go on Indiana Jones or the Matterhorn, and it's like, and then it's like, okay, well, I'll take the afternoon off, go back to the hotel, hit the jacuzzi, and that's I'm perfectly fine with that.
I totally agree with you, except I'm going to choose the Mickey pretzel with the cheese cup over.
Yes.
I mean, I do love me a Dole Whip too, no question. But my park snack of choice is a Mickey shaped pretzel with that.
I think it's funny. I think it's funny that you say that. I guess subconsciously it just happens this way. I always get a pretzel every time I go to Disney's Hollywood Studios. I don't know what it is, and I always go to that one little cart. Like right before you get to the ABC commissary, it's always that same cart. I get the pretzel, I get the cheese, I sit down at the little umbrella table.
Yeah, I get mine at Bayside Brewery at in California Adventure. So it's it's literally the same. I do like the same thing every time. That's where I get my pretzel if I'm in DCA. If I'm in Disneyland Park, where do I get my pretzel? Oh, by Big Thunder Mountain, that cart right there. Yeah. So I mean, I have my spots too. Everybody, you have these like weird habits. Yeah.
I rope drop the most popular attraction at any Disney park, Starbucks. So that's
true.
Hey, that's
not true. If we have rope dropped Starbucks over rope dropping a ride. This is but we do live in Seattle. We are big coffee drinkers, and we can't get through the day without having our coffee, or we get cranky. Yeah.
100%. Now, have you tried, Sam, the pretzel at the Avengers campus, the massive pretzel that they have over there?
We have. It's good, but it's not a Mickey pretzel. It's not as good. It's kind of like, the pretzel in Epcot in Germany, right? In the German pavilion. It's a good pretzel. It's a little too hard, right? Like the exterior is the crust is a little too hard. It's the same at the one at Pim's. The crust is a little bit too hard. I prefer my pretzel a little bit more chewy.
That's fair. Okay. Absolutely.
And I guess it's safe to say too that you both are fans of DCA, that you approve of all the new stuff and the expansions that are coming with Avengers excited. And Coco and Avatar, and
we are excited for all of it. The only thing I might be a little disappointed is that they're not putting Flight of Passage in DCA, because like I said, that's one of my two favorite rides over at Walt Disney World. And so I would have loved to I've been perfectly happy with an exact replication of it. That's, I might differ from some people in the fact that I'm okay with some of the rides being exactly the same in the two parks, because it just means I don't feel the pressure like I have to go on it every time. But yeah, I just really love that ride. So I would have loved that.
I'm excited for it. I will say the two things I thought when I saw the announcements is this felt like an episode of The Simpsons where the monorail guy came to town and somebody came to Disney with I got these log flume rides. What do you think? Everything's water.
Water.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for it. The only thing that is a little sad for me, I've been seeing some stuff in the community suggesting that they might take over the Grizzly River Rapids, and I'm like, I love being able to be at the Grand Cow pool, go over, ride Grizzly River Rapids, go back to the pool in Great California. So I hope they don't touch it, but if they do, whatever. I mean, I'm excited to see the new stuff. So yeah,
I'm a little bit the same way about Muppets, 3D. So at Hollywood Studios. So that's the one thing. Like, I mean, we don't know for sure it's gone, but it's probably gone. Let's be honest. And I'm not like railing about it on Twitter or anything, because I understand, right? Like, if we're getting something new that's going to be great, and this Monsters Inc. roller coaster door ride sounds and looks amazing. But
that's literally probably, knowing Disney, that's going to be the title of the ride.
Yeah.
With a colon.
It's literally going to be the Monsters Inc. roller coaster door.
Yeah, exactly. But I might shed a tear for the Muppets 3D. I love that little guy who says, they all think I'm talking to them, but I'm talking to you. I love that.
Love it. Well, Brian and Sam, it was an absolute pleasure. We had an absolute blast talking shop with you guys, guy and gal, today. Thank you so much for coming on. Sam, I'll start with you this time. If you could let everybody home know where they could find you guys on social media.
Absolutely. Find us everywhere except Instagram at DCL Duo, all smushed together one word. And find us on Instagram at DCL_Duo. If you want to find us in general, we have a website. Right now it's under construction. It's being revamped, but it is DCLDuo.com. And we have links on there to all of our shows, as well as to where all of our socials. So if you need a one-stop shop to find us, that's where you can find us. But find us on YouTube, find us on your favorite podcast provider, and you'll be able to hear or see our live show or our regular podcast show twice weekly.
Perfect. Brian, thank you for coming on. Appreciate you.
Hey, thank you for having us. We love meeting. One of the reason we started our show was to meet fun people in the Disney community. And so really great to meet both of you. Thanks for having us on. And if you ever take a Disney cruise, just email us, because we want to repay and have you on the show so you can talk about it. So yeah.
Oh, I'd love to. That'd be great. Fantastic.
Oh, that's perfect, because I was actually telling Sam before we started, Brian, I'm actually next week, I'm doing what I'm calling a cruise sandwich. So
yes.
I'm doing the Disney Fantasy, then doing a few days at Walt Disney World, and then going on the Wish.
Nice.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Nice. And he's going to become platinum. He's going to become platinum after he finishes his fantasy cruise. His first platinum cruise will be his Wish cruise. So congratulations, George. We're very excited for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah. And I was not planning that at all. Like, the way that it just, because the first cruise, my coworker's brother had asked me, hey, would you like to join me on a Disney cruise? All expenses paid. I'm like, no, definitely not.
Don't believe him. He called me and said, hey, I want to be platinum. I'm going to do 2 cruises in September.
There you go. That's right. I bet that's right.
And then the second cruise was, we were planning to go to D23 the first time, and it was a complete disaster. I could not get tickets. The system, the website shut me out. And I was like so disappointed, because we had several people going with us, and it was all on my shoulders. And I was like, I failed everybody. And I'm like, I got to make myself feel better. I'm booking myself a Disney cruise. So it was like, it just so happens, it just like all the stars aligned correctly. So it was like, my friend said, wait, you're going on a cruise, and then like 2 weeks later you're going on another cruise. And I'm like, oh, so that leaves a week gap. I'm like, oh, well, then I'm going to Disney World then.
Obviously.
Well, thank you both for joining us. And George, if you could let everybody know where they could find you on social media before we close it out.
Absolutely. Give me a second. Just gonna do my stretches here.
There it is.
His vocal exercises, his stretches.
But if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you can find me right here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There he is. Comment down below with all your comments, questions about the Disney Cruise Line, about the parks, whatever's on your mind, comment down below. We would love to hear from you. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.